All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, welcome, 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 everyone. We are live and we are direct, and we are back with another program this Saturday. Our topic today is Beyond the Beret, the true mission of the Black Panthers. This is a topic that we talked about last week that we was going to get into since we did the Republic of New Africa. And we had a lot of questions, Doc, about some of the things that we spoke on about the Black Panthers. And you know, I think a lot of it, especially when we talked about, you showed us Marlon Brando at whatever the event was that they were, and you shared that these white folks, the rich white folks, were putting monies in the Panthers' pockets. They were the ones that were paying for all of this. Now, of course, this came as a surprise. This came as something new. There's a lot of people, hell, I didn't even know that much.
I mean, you know, think about it logically. What has been the criticism that the Democratic Party has had over the last, let's say, 8 years? You know, the opening that they provided for Trump, because many Trump supporters are poor and working class people. That was the base for the Democratic Party for the longest time. They lost that base because, you know, many people say, well, they're dealing with Matt Damon, they're dealing with these Hollywood types and what have you. These wealthy Hollywood cats, as leftists, nothing new. It was happening back in the 30s and the 40s, and all the way forward. You have to remember that the House Un-American Activities Committee, you know, when we go into the Cold War, that's predicated upon Hollywood. Hollywood was then, and many people would argue now, the epicenter for wealthy leftists, wealthy liberals.
Wow. I think we went out a little bit. We lost you when you said Matt Damon, and then we came back and you were saying wealthy liberals. Can you repeat that section again?
Yeah, you know, when you look at the present criticism of the Democratic Party, it's that they've got in bed with wealthy whites, the Matt Damons of the world, that Hollywood elite, instead of dealing with poor and working class, the labor unions, the unionists, and what have you. This idea of wealthy white liberals coming out of Hollywood is nothing new. Nothing at all. You know, if you go back and you look at Vietnam War era, you'll find they call her Hanoi Jane, I want to say, if I remember the nickname right. They're talking about Jane Fonda, because she was not considered to be someone who was supporting the troops in Vietnam. So this idea is nothing. It's nothing new.
Wow, excellent. But the Jane Fonda, the actress, was Hanoi Jane?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she was Hanoi Jane. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, we're going to play a short clip, just 2 minutes, and look at this introduction to the Black Panthers. So let's see.
The Black Panthers. Black Panther. Black Panther Party. Black Panther movement.
The Black Panthers were absolutely unique.
Being black in America meant that you didn't walk down the street with the same sense of safety and sense of privilege as a white person. Attack dogs, fire hoses, police jump on you.
gun at your head. This is what we were going through on a daily basis.
We stand on the eve of a black revolution, brother.
Now we have voices within the community that we're not going to continue to turn the other cheek.
The Second Amendment guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
We're going to carry our guns and we're going to follow the police. We're going to maintain a legal distance, ready to throw down if necessary.
Anyone who would approve of this kind of demonstration must be out of their mind.
That's what I need.
These racist Gestapo thieves have to stop brutalizing our community or we're going to drive them out.
The majority of the rank and file are women.
We tried to change some of the clear gender roles. Women had guns and men cooked breakfast for children. The way we walked and talked and dressed, we were a phenomenon.
I think the Black Panthers really understood the media. They used us to their advantage.
Chairman of the Black Panther Party, and here he is. They tapped the phone. The phone is probably hooked up to the White House.
You read the Black Panther Party newspaper?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because I'm black and I'm proud.
The FBI wanted to destroy the Panthers.
How about justice? Justice is incidental to law and order.
This was all out attack on the Black Panther Party. Every significant office is going to be raided, bombed, shot, mass arrests.
They were coming to kill us.
When the 15-minute gun battle was over, 2 Black Panthers were dead.
This was obviously a political assassination.
It was like a slaughterhouse.
We were doing fundraisers at places like Jane Fonda's townhouse so that we could raise money for the Legal Defense Fund.
There were 156 not guilty verdicts. It's astonishing.
We don't hate nobody because of their color. We hate oppression.
We refer to ourselves as the vanguard. We wanted the entire community to follow.
I feel free. I feel absolutely free. You understand? That's what I feel.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, you heard Jane Fonda hosting fundraisers for the Panthers.
Mhm. Definitely. Knowing that to be their core situation, as far as how do you think the message got mixed, whereas a lot of us did not perceive that it was a white funded organization. We perceived it to be black funded by black people.
Whoa. I'm not going to say it wasn't black funded. White folk gave money. These Hollywood types, they gave money. The sort of the path for white influence as far as monies go is Eldridge Cleaver. Cleaver is this very interesting radical figure. When people think about the Panthers and create an image of what a Black Panther leader would look like, it's not Huey. Okay, Huey is from Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana. Huey has a high-pitched nasal voice. It's Eldridge. Eldridge is the archetype of what people think a Black leader would be, without a doubt. From the goatee to his language that he used. And it's language that, once again, to revert back to Huey, because people associate the Panthers with Huey so much. When Huey comes out of prison, having been sentenced for the shooting of Officer John Fry, Huey has a criticism of the Panthers, because you have to remember that the Panther, in talking about the Bay Area first, the Panthers received 2 major movements of a membership explosion. The first one was when they debuted for the nation with this is early February, March of '67. Remember, the Panthers were formed October 15, 1966, so they're not even a year old when they, quote unquote, stormed the state capitol. That was when people outside of the Bay Area, outside of California especially, became aware of the Panthers. The second moment was when Huey was arrested for the killing of John Fry and the shooting of Herbert Haynes. the floodgates are going to open, and these people have never met Huey. They've never heard of Huey. You know, he's in many ways a living legend, an icon whose name they're going to struggle in, but it's Eldridge. And when Huey comes out, Huey's criticism is quite simply, everybody sounds like Eldridge. Y'all all sound like Eldridge. And Eldridge was, you know, he's good for sound bites. You know, this is the man, fuck you, Ronnie Baby. You know, that's Eldridge. You know, if you don't give money, and tell me who you think he's talking to when he says this. Just at how you end our show, Eldridge told audiences, he said, if you don't give money to support the Black Panther Party, I hope that when you leave here, that some big dick nigga catches you in an alley and slits your throat. You know who he talking to.
Wow.
He ain't talking to us.
Right.
Okay. You know, so it's in many ways Eldridge. That's the and Eldridge is, and many Panthers will dispute this. Huey disputes this. He says Eldridge was never in charge. But Eldridge is the media darling. David Hilliard might have been officially in charge when Bobby was incarcerated and Huey was incarcerated, but it's Eldridge that is given the brilliant sound bites, and Eldridge has access to white folk. He has access to the media. Eldridge was released early from prison because of the influence of white radicals. So he's deeply connected. The white folk provided the funding for the Black House, which was a community meeting point for Black folk.
Wow, interesting. So the coming of the Black Panthers is a result of the failures of the nonviolent protests to secure full rights for justice for Black people. Is that something you would say, Doc, or no?
I wouldn't shorten it that way, because we have to have a conversation about how did Black folk end up in the Bay Area? How did they end up in the West Coast? You know, what was that Western migration? What was that? What was the cause of that? And the cause of it was primarily the bombing of Pearl Harbor. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, you're going to have you have to rebuild the Navy shipyard, and there are a lot of jobs there, a lot of jobs that Black men and Black women are going to have. But to talk about the arrival of all these Black folk, and keep in mind, California is a state that elected Ronald Reagan as its governor. So it's not that bastion of liberalism that we're looking at right now with Gavin Newsom. White folk were afraid with all these Black folk pouring into the Bay Area. They're coming in every day because they're fleeing places like Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas. And you look at the leadership of the Black Panther Party, Huey's from Louisiana, Bobby's from Dallas, Texas, Eldridge is from Arkansas, Geronimo Pratt's from Louisiana, and and the list goes on. Their people migrated west in search of jobs, in search of better lives. And the reaction of white politicians is in many ways predictable. That reaction is they're going to counterbalance this infusion of Black folk. And remember Tupac Amaru Shakur being beat up by the Oakland Police Department. Okay. The political leaders out in the Bay Area with the westward migration of Black folk, they went and recruited specifically sheriffs and sheriff deputies from deep southern states, from Arkansas, from Louisiana, from Texas, because the thinking is they'll know how to handle these Negroes that are arriving by the droves. And that sets the stage for racial conflict in California and the Bay Area in particular. That you got these Southern bigots who are coming out here, and you got Black folk who were fleeing from the oppression of Jim and Jane Crow, only to look up and here you got Sheriff so-and-so, he out here working now.
Wow, very, very interesting, very interesting. So then the people who went out and recruited these police officers from the South recruited them understanding that it was going to be a bomb when the two sides met.
They wanted somebody who could control these Negroes who were coming in. It's just what it is. Control it however y'all are able to control it. And those are the roots of a lot of the infighting between police and Black folk in the Bay Area. It's not accidental that Black Panther Party's 10-point platform and program. It's not accidental that point number 7 is an immediate end to police brutality. It's not accidental that the first community service activity that the Panthers are going to participate in is actually going to be the Panther patrols, patrolling Oakland Police Department officers. And Huey and Bobby kind of agree. They didn't expect to live a year patrolling the Oakland Police Department. Negroes wouldn't patrol police departments now with body cams. So can you imagine the courage it would take? And it was not something that was kind of embraced by Black folk in the Bay Area. The Panther membership rolls didn't explode. You principally had, for the first couple months, you only had 3 members: Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, and Lil Bobby Hutton. Of course, Lil Bobby Hutton is going to be the first one to get killed. And he was 16.
Wow. So when we look at the influences like Malcolm X and the concept of by any means necessary, how did him and that concept reflect on the Panthers? How did they adopt that?
Well, it's one of those things that Malcolm, and you have to really, tip your hat to Malcolm, because the Black radicals and the different variants of nationalism, they're all the children of Malcolm's in one way or another. Even the cultural nationalists are the children of Malcolm, even though Malcolm would disagree with their decision to eat pork and what have you. But the Panthers are definitely influenced by Malcolm. The idea of by any means necessary that Black folk need to, in many ways, and this may be one of the greatest influences that Malcolm has upon them, is his definition of Black nationalism, that Black folk need to control the politicians, the politics, the economics of their community. The Panthers are attempting to do all of those things. One could make a very good argument that Malcolm's definition of Black nationalism served as a template for what the Panthers are going to advance and what they're going to seek to do. They're feeding their children. And despite what a lot of brothers who have think they're recreating the Panthers were willing to battle at every stage. They even battle via electoral politics, with Bobby Seale and Elaine Brown running for citywide positions in Oakland.
Wow. So, Doc, since there's so much big influence by Malcolm X, why didn't they fully, or why don't people fully follow what Malcolm followed? It's like they take bits and pieces and say, this is what it is, and this is what I'm going to do. Are they really followers of Malcolm, or just aspects?
They're inspired by Malcolm. Okay. Now the idea of adopting, and I think you're insinuating the Nation of Islam's program. The Panthers are not Muslims. And as you can see from, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad having the idea that white folk are devils, you can see in that little intro to the film, there's white folk all around the Panthers. The Panthers are in bed, literally in bed with white folk, in bed with Jane Fonda, literally. Okay, many of those Hollywood actresses. Come on, man. Think about the fetishes that had to grow out of that you're you dealing with Django right here.
Right.
This is a bad Negro.
Right.
This is that moment of the 1960s where you're going to start seeing Melvin Van Peebles, sweetback's badass song, and those types of things going on. So yeah, but as far as them being lockstep with what any other group is doing, the Panthers are arguably the only national level Black Power organization that was willing to form public alliances with white organizations. The first one being the Peace and Freedom Party.
This reminds me when you say that. I watched this movie and it was quote unquote about the Black Panthers. And one part of the movie, one of the Black Panthers had a Black woman, of course, and they were in a relationship. He goes out there to the rich part of California, meets this white woman who's a housewife, next thing you know, she start coming out to where the Panthers, do their breakfast program and all this stuff. And next thing you know, and she begins to have sex with the Black Panther. And, and I'm watching this, Doc, and I'm literally like, man, these people can't make a real movie without putting that bullshit in there. They did not sleep with no damn white women, and it's like, here you say this, and going back to how I thought when I watched the movie, because I was pissed that, the movie, they're going to take a decent movie but throw this scene in there. And I'm like, this shit never even happened. And now you say, no, yeah, that really did happen.
I mean,
literally, it did happen.
Literally, it did happen. I think I told you last week the joke that Elaine Brown would tell during some of her speeches. She says, yeah, people say that I the only reason I was the head of the Black Panther Party was because I slept with Huey. Okay, and Huey has this great quote where he says, yeah. I know y'all say that Elaine's a bitch, but she's my bitch. Okay. So Elaine tells this joke. She says, well, if sleeping with Panther leaders gets you, the head spot, of the Black Panther Party, she said, you know what that means? That means I got the baddest pussy in the state of California. Because Huey fucked half of the women in California and Eldridge fucked the other half. And so there's some, I think that we, in our attempts to revisit some things about these people who become our heroes, who become these icons, that we somehow make them non-human. Okay. And we don't put on them what are natural human traits. And it's just what it is. You're talking about brothers who are, and keep in mind, we're talking about California. We're talking about the Bay Area, which is a working class, poor area. People who want to understand the difference between the Bay Area, between Oakland and San Francisco. Look at the difference in image between the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders. And that should clear up, the different populace that you're talking about. These are guys who were gangbanging before they became Panthers. They were involved in gang warfare. Some of them joined the Panthers, others joined Ron Karenga's US organization. So that's nothing all that new, to be honest with you. So you're taking these individuals who are working class, poor, and you think that they're going to have the discipline in the politicized nature to not deal with white women? Come on. Come on. If it's available, they're going to take it, especially if there's some money attached to it. Come on.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Come on.
Now, Doc, the Panthers was together for what, about 10 years?
Yeah, I would date them about 10 years, but towards the end, they're not what people have in mind as the Panthers. It's an organization that has in many ways turned its focus towards less on police brutality and what have you, and more towards schools and things like that, and community programs and what have you. You have to remember that towards the end, the Panthers are basically very similar to a nonprofit organization. They're receiving government grants that are supporting their programs.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think for that same period of time, if the Panthers would have did like King, when King came up north to do his thing, if they would have went down south, Mississippi, Alabama, would they have lasted 10 years, or they would have been blown out the way?
You got to remember, the Panthers are not just a national organization; they're an international organization. The Panthers are in the South. You got Panther chapters in the South. We had one here in Houston, Texas. We actually had two in Houston, Texas. The first one was going to be the official Panther chapter, and according to my brother, and I know he's resting with the Lord, Esther King, one of the local activists here in Houston, he said that the initial chapter, and you have to remember that the Panthers, they shut down all the chapters because they knew they had been infiltrated. And the Houston chapter was actually started by a person who was a police informant. And that knowledge is shared with the Panthers. The Houston Panthers, it comes out off of the wire from the prison. They were like, yo, that's the police right there. Okay. And so they shut that chapter down, and you have a reiteration. It is the Panthers, but not the Panthers in name, but it's called People's Party 2. And it's headed by a brilliant young brother by the name of Carl Hampton. No relationship to Fred Hampton, but Carl Hampton would receive the same fate that Fred Hampton did. Carl Hampton's going to be killed by officers. They're going to shoot him with hollow point bullets from the steeple of a church in Houston, in Black community.
Oh, wow.
On Dowling Street, yeah.
So I did a little search while you were talking, and there was a Black Panther chapter in Mississippi. In Mississippi, that's shocking to me. Your mic, Doc, is messing up.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Robert F. Williams, Negroes with Guns. That's Southern. Can you hear me now?
Say that again, because you're still going in and out.
Okay. Robert F. Williams, Negroes with Guns. That was a Southern movement. The Deacons for Defense and Justice, Southern movement. So, you have to think that far too often we have these very ironic blessing and curse situations. One of the blessings of Southern Black folk is that they were so poor. So they had to hunt. They hunted game. So in many ways, they already got guns. And they're definitely not cowards.
So they were following the police like they were in Oakland down there in the South?
Well, the thing that you have to remember, and this is a Marxian term, dialectical materialism. What dialectical materialism means, and it's one of the Panther principles, is you look around your community and you try to figure out what it is that your community needs, and you move to address that. Okay, I'll give you an example. In New Orleans, white New Orleans emergency services would not give ambulance rides to Black folk. So the Panthers are going to address that and start their own, the New Orleans Black Panther Party chapter will start their own ambulance service. They see a need and they work to address it. You have to always situate the Panthers within their local community, because that's going to be one of the principal driving elements in what it is that they're going to do program wise. So yeah, they say that again.
What did you call it? Dialectical what?
Dialectical materialism.
Dialectical materialism.
Yeah, dialectical materialism is one of the things that I teach my students. I'm like, if you're ever in a situation and people are trying to talk over your head, say, well, what do you think about dialectical materialism? it shuts them down every single time. You know, I do something similar with if I go into like a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore or something, and they follow me around like I'm gonna steal some books. I'll ask them, I say, well, do you have a section on literary criticism? And they'll have 3 or 4 books. I'm like, I have more books on literary criticism than you guys are selling. Yeah. Dialectical materialism, but it's a way of allowing you to kind of tailor what will be the activism and what it is that you and your organization is going to do in your particular city. Although police brutality is an issue for Black folk throughout the entire nation, you're going to see some groups not deal with police brutality. They're going to deal with schools. They're going to deal with education, because those are the things that their people need.
Okay, gotcha. Check on that. And so that's a good thing. I really believe that's a good thing, because I don't think it would have lasted in the South if they actually followed the police like that with their guns. I don't see that lasting.
Well, I mean, there's not much difference between Southern police officers and those especially on the West Coast. As we were talking about earlier, they're literally recruited to come out to the Bay Area because they are Southern racists and bigots and what have you. And these types of conversations remind me of Malcolm's great quote, where Malcolm says, quit talking about the South. As long as you south of the Canadian border, you south. So there's and you look at the attacks upon the Panthers, you're talking about attacks happening from Oakland all the way to New Haven, Connecticut. There is no safe space for them, none whatsoever.
Wow, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to move forward. We want to talk about their foundational document. And would you agree that their foundational document is their 10-point plan, or would it be something else?
No, 10-point platform, most certainly. But this is a 10-point platform.
Your mic is messing up again, Doc.
Oh man, I don't know why. When you show the video, I'm going to actually switch computers. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The 10-point platform and program is not a very revolutionary document. When you read through it, they're talking about jobs. They're talking about employment. They're talking about schools. They're talking about economics. The most radical thing that you'll find in a 10-point platform and program is the immediate release of all Black men from prison. They're nowhere close to what's occurring in the Black Power era in regards to what people are asking for. There was and I'll give you an example of the difference between asking for jobs and all those things. And a big part of the 10-point platform and program is actually predicated upon the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. But there was one Black Power group who actually called for white folk to leave planet Earth. But they had some date. They said, we want all white folk to leave planet Earth by this date. Now you tell me which organization, which meeting would you go to? Would you go to the one of the Panthers talking about jobs and schools and things like that? Or would you go hear what these wild brothers is talking about? We want white folk to leave, like the mothership connection gonna come down and take all white folk away from planet Earth.
Wow, that is crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and check out the 10-point program. And this clip is going to be very interesting as we go ahead and watch and listen to this.
In this video, I will be talking about the Black Panther 10-point program. The first rule of the program is we want freedom and the power to determine destiny.
Hold on, I'm going to have to change it because I'm having a hard time hearing it. So I know if I'm having a hard time hearing it, y'all are having a hard time hearing it. So hold on, let me find another video of that same woman giving the 10-point platform and breaking down what it's supposed to mean. So let's see, where else is that? I can't find it. So we're going to have to let Bobby take us through the 10-point program. But we'll come back and I'll discuss why I wanted to use the white girl doing her presentation on the 10-point program because it's very important. But let's listen to Bobby as he explains.
And you also your soul, your needs, your political desires and needs, because that is Huey's soul. When we first organized the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, he would say, Bobby, he says, we're going to draw up a basic platform, just basic, that black people can read. He says, we don't want to go real elaborate with all these essays and dissertations and all this stuff, because the brother going to look at that and he say, man, I ain't got time for that. I got to go see what I can do for myself. It's just a basic platform that the mothers who struggle hard to raise us, that the fathers who worked hard, that the young brothers in school who come out of school semi-illiterate, you say we want freedom, we want power to determine the destiny of our black community, full employment for our people. Number 3, we want housing fit, decent housing fit for shelter of human beings. Number 4, we want all black men to be exempt from military service. Number 5, we want decent education for our black people in our community that teaches us the true nature of this decadent racist society, and to teach black people and our young black brothers and sisters their place in society, because if they don't know their place in society and in the world, they can't relate to anything else. Number 6, we want an end to the robbery by the white racist businessman of black people and black people in their community. Number 7, we want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. Number 8, we want all black men held in county, state, federal jails and prisons to be released because they have not had a fair trial, because they've been tried by all white juries, and that's just like being tried in Germany being a Jew. Number 8, we want black people, number 9, when brought to trial, to be tried by members of their peers. And a peer being one who comes from the same economic, social, religious, historical, and racial background. If the United States government and the courts and the local courts did this, They would have to choose black people from the black community to sit up on the jury. They'd have to choose some of them mothers who've been working 20 years in Miss Ann's kitchen scrubbing floors like my mother done done. They have to choose some of them hard-working fathers. They have to choose some of those brothers who stand on the block out there wondering where they're going to get a gig. They're going to have to choose these black people. And number 10, he would say, let's just summarize it. We want housing, we want clothing, we want education, we want justice, and we want peace. This is a basic platform. In case you never knew it or not, of all the things that you've heard in the press, of all the derogatory statements that's been made in the press about Brother Huey P. Newton and I, of all these derogatory statements to guide you away from seeing this basic platform that Huey was talking about for his own people. We have to learn to look through the white press. We have to learn to see what's going on. Now, out of this platform, Huey P. Newton realized that it was necessary for us to start working on these points, these 10 points practically. Remember number 7? We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people. This is very, very important. And here, whether you know it or not, is where you start dealing with the black revolution. When Huey says every black man put a shotgun in your home, and once we let the man know, say, look, we armed from block to block, and we're going to patrol you from our windows. And we're not going to have you brutalizing none of our people in the streets. Do you realize what kind of power black people have then? Because you begin to neutralize that police force, because them cops going to start riding shaky and scared. In fact, we're in a position then to demand that they withdraw from our community because they occupy our community just like a foreign troop occupies territory. Very important to understand. We hate cops beating black people over their heads and murdering them. That's what we hate. If you got enough energy to sit down and hate a white person just because of the color of his skin, you waste a lot of energy. You better take that same energy and put it in some motion out there and start dealing with those oppressive conditions, and you're going to find out just what you hate and what you're going to stop. Black people, we are organizing to stop racism. You dig it? When you stop racism, you stop brutality and murder of black people by the racist occupying army in our black community. That's what we're going to stop. What's being done to us? You dig it? Can you dig the white power structure in this racist police force and how they've escalated the situation? That before Watts there was 1,300 cops. Now there's 6,000 cops patrolling black people. That in Oakland they had 350 cops just 3.5 years ago. Now they got 1,000 cops patrolling black people. San Francisco's double its police force, and every area, major metropolis where black people live all across this country, they've double, triple, and quadruple their police force, equipped them with tanks, all kinds. We got to stop it, brother. Let's get together and unify.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that was Bobby Seale, and he was going over the 10-point platform. First, I was trying to show the white girl as she do the 10-point platform, and it was very interesting because the way she explained each of the points very clearly shows that you should not have them trying to teach black students, black people, period, about their own history. She was so way off, it was laughable, very laughable. So the 10-point program, let's go over it. And I'm going to share a different screen as we walk through this program. Okay, so this is the 10-point program that the Black Panthers use. Their first point, we want freedom. We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our black community. Now, Doc, some of these things that are points we have to figure out, well, who are they saying, we want power to determine? Who is it that's supposed to give them this authority or this power to determine the freedom that the community wants? I think you're on mute, Doc.
Yeah, I saw it was muted. In many ways, what you're talking about is a unidentified oppressive force. And as I talked about earlier, when you look at this, we want freedom, we want power to determine the destiny of our American community. It's the Declaration of Independence broken down. It's almost as if you have the colonists talking to the mother country. These are Black folk that are talking to America now. And in many ways, it creates a very ironic situation and it's an indictment that America has actually become the very monster and tyrants that they initially set out to resist. So what they're talking about is the same thing all Black organizations are talking about. And it is quite simply, we want power to determine what it is that is going to happen within our communities, within our families, and to us personally.
Okay. So the next one, we want full employment for our people. We believe the federal government is responsible and obligated to give every man employment or a guaranteed income.
Yes.
We believe that if white American businessmen will not give full employment, then the means of production should be taken from the businessmen and placed in the community, so that the people of the community can organize and employ all of its people and give a high standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but
clearly they're not operating out of a framework of capitalism.
Correct.
They're operating out of socialism. And there's a great argument that could be made that the Panthers are not Black. They're red. They're socialists. They're communist. That's the ideology. They're reading, once again, when we talk about dialectical materialism, that's Karl Marx. When we talk about reading Che Guevara, we talk about Fidel Castro, we talk about all of these international, Mao Zedong, all these international leaders. These are not Black folk that are necessarily advancing these ideas. It's one of the things that makes the Panthers so attractive to non-Black activists. And it's also one of the main reasons why J. Edgar Hoover is going to take, the FBI director, is going to take such a significant and serious interest in the Panthers. Because the Panthers, do you really have to worry about the Nation of Islam overthrowing United States government? No. Because what they're talking about is racial separatism. They want their own state so they can go off and they can do their own thing. But you got these wild white boys, SDS, especially the weatherman. Okay, you want to talk about some people who will put your brain in a Rubik's Cube situation? Go talk to the weatherman. I interviewed quite a few when I was doing my doctoral dissertation, and I couldn't tell if they was still high. And this wasn't off of no weed. This must have been mushrooms or whatever they were still feeling the effects of. But those groups are talking about overthrowing the United States government, overthrowing the entire system. Okay, seizing this system. The Communist Party USA had this beautiful mantra, and it is quite simply, to each according to his own needs, and from each according to his own ability. So whatever you could give to society, we'll take, and whatever you need, we're going to give you. They're not talking about profit. They're not talking about capitalism. They're talking about socialism. And so what Hoover has the intelligence to recognize is that the Panthers are truly dangerous, because they're the one entity that is able to take Black folk, especially as popular as they are within the Black community, they could deliver Black America directly to the white radical community and increasing their numbers by millions.
Wow. Let's look at point number 5.
Okay.
We want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches our true history and our role in the present day society. Now, Doc, break that one down. What are they actually saying?
What they want to do is to create the curriculum and control what is being taught in schools that Black children are attending. You know, we talked about this previously, the idea of it, and we can start at kindergarten. Okay. What are Black kids learning in kindergarten? What are they learning? You know, and versus what are the children who are in the Panther Breakfast for Children program learning? They're not learning the same thing. Okay. That's the reason why the Panther Breakfast for Children program, when J. Edgar Hoover was asked why the Panthers were the single greatest threat to the internal security of the nation, he said grits. Grits. And the reason that the Panthers Breakfast for Children program is so dangerous in Hoover's mind is because you're planting seeds that will eventually sprout, and they're creating Black revolutionaries. You're not going to see them sprout for 20 years, but it will sprout eventually, and that's going to be that because they're revolutionary minded. Just think, and we've done this before, just think about what the Panthers are teaching at the Free Breakfast for Children program. Okay. Black is beautiful. Free Huey. Set our warrior free. Free Huey. Now going over to Crevlin Elementary School where I went to kindergarten at, and guess what we learned? Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And we around there talking about a moo-moo here and a moo-moo there. There's nothing political about that at all. Okay? Quack, quack here and a quack, quack there. Here a quack there, a quack everywhere, quack, quack. Versus these children knowing who Fred Hampton is, knowing who Paul Robeson is. Okay? That's what they're talking about. When we talked about the idea, and we talked about this in this space several times, the idea of manufacturing consent. Everybody needs to be reading the same thing, because at the end of the day, we need to understand that we're going to the same destination, the liberation and salvation of the Black nation, as Khaled would say, versus what we have now, where you have a disassembled community intellectually. So there's no way that you're not going to have a disassembled community in other ways. You know, when you know, come on, let's really talk about the fact that right now, the vast majority of Black men will not even look at a Black woman and acknowledge her presence. Where's that coming from? Okay, whose image is that? Our intellectual diet is coming from people who hate us. Okay, so if you're being taught by people who hate Black folk, what do you think you're going to end up thinking at the end? It's one of the reasons why we have a whole bunch of Uncle Ruckuses in our midst. Wow. They have criticism of a lot of Black folk, but not them, not themselves. They're different. You're a special type of Negro. And the only way that you get that type of thinking is flowing from the idea of Black folk ain't shit. And where did you learn that from? Who taught you? As Malcolm said, who taught you to hate yourself? And he was talking in the 1950s and 1960s. We talking 2025 now. still having the same conversation. So in many ways, what the Panthers are talking about is let's have a relevant education. Okay. Which one is more applicable and more useful for Black minds? The Diary of Anne Frank or the autobiography of Malcolm X? Which one?
Right. Malcolm X all day long.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a situation right now, and I would challenge anybody that's listening. Go ahead and talk to a young person and ask them, who is Assata Shakur? And see if they don't tell you, oh, that's Tupac's mom. Wrong. But that's what has happened on our watch. And it's gotten to the point now where, and this may be the most damaging and pernicious aspect of it all, is quite simply that many of our children don't even want to learn no more.
Exactly. Looking at the current state with the education, and we know there's been this pushback on the a program that's not even taught in schools. Critical race theory is not taught in elementary school, middle school, or high school, but such a big pushback against it. What would that pushback look like if what the Panthers are saying, what we want to be taught in there, was actually in there? What would that look like?
They're not going to do it. That's what it's going to look like. Make us. We control the schools. We control the budget. Y'all are too lazy and lackadaisical to even get out and vote, cast a vote for a new Black school board. And even if you do elect a Black school board, many of those folk are so beholden and scared of white folk that they're going to do what they think white folk want them to do. It's one of the most damaging things that we see from a person like an Umar Johnson. Black folk inherently and innately know that we need to have independent schools. And so to have a situation where someone professes to be creating an independent Black school and it turns out to be a scam, a con, sets us back immeasurably. Whereas the proper action would have been find a independent Black school in your city or your state. Send them $200-300 because as a man thinketh, so is he. So until you are educating your own, until you are able to get the shackles off of their minds, you ain't going nowhere. And putting a Black teacher in the front of that classroom is doing nothing. They may serve as a inspiration. They may serve as some way of being able to mentor, but they're receiving the same script, meaning the same training that white educators do.
Do they have the power, Doc?
Who's they?
The teachers. Do they have the power to change what they're supposed to be teaching? Do they have the power to add in material, or it has to be exactly as it's given to them?
Well, a couple things. Number one is quite simply, you're going to be evaluated based upon how they do on that standardized test. If they fail that test at the end, you're getting fired. That's a clear sign that you haven't been teaching the curriculum. So that's an issue in and of itself. However, we also have this movement. The Houston Independent School District was actually taken over. They are, look here, they are timing you now. Okay. They're timing you to see how much time you spend. They hire someone to go in there with a stopwatch to time you. How much time did you spend on this? How much time did you spend on that? So the idea of being an educator and have some type of autonomy, that's not the real world anymore. Not at all. Reminds me of when I was in college, I worked at UPS, and they hired someone to stand at the end of our trailer and count how many boxes we did over a 2-minute period. Then they multiplied that by 30. And that was our hourly rate of what we were doing. Yeah, same thing. You can't just go up in there and teach what it is that you want to teach. That's probably one of the most common comments that I get from my students, and it is quite simply, you never be able to teach what you teach here in high school. And they're correct.
What happened to the teachers union? The teachers union allows somebody to come in there with a stopwatch and time them?
Yeah, what you gonna do? This is, especially now, this is a different day, brother. We just received, and this is the university level. There are no more faculty senates in the state of Texas. None. And if they catch you meeting, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a wrap. And the thing is that let's say that you get a rogue teacher who goes in and says, you know what? No, these kids need to learn this, and then they're going to fire them. Now, what y'all going to do? So I sit around and be like, oh, that wasn't right. That wasn't right how they did that, brother, right there. Blah blah blah. You can't do nothing with that. What's the counterattack? What y'all gonna do for me? Can you help me out or something? And you know the answer. The answer is no. Man, I hate to see that they did you like that. Yeah, because you're disorganized, you're scatterbrained, you're not prepared for anything. And your opponent, let's be very honest and very clear about this. Your opponent they're meeting 24/7, 365. The day after the election, they getting ready for the midterms. Whereas you sit up, oh yeah, well, I might go down there and get registered to vote. You're losing. Because you're lazy, and it doesn't matter that much to you.
Exactly. So, with the Black Panther program, would you say that they're calling for a different destiny, a separate destiny for Black people? Could you clarify that? Or they're not?
The Panthers are aware of racism and discrimination and prejudice. It would be foolish to say that they're not. However, what the Panthers are principally asking for is the achievement of a worker's paradise, where the workers own the means of production, where everything is going to be sort of owned almost as a co-op. Okay, where everybody is going to have a job. There's going to be 100% employment, and everyone is going to have the ability to take care of themselves and to live with dignity. I often challenge people, and I ask them, I'm like, have you ever been to a socialist country? And they'll say no, and I'm like, well, would you be shocked to find that there is no homelessness there? Would you be shocked to find that school is free? What's the number one debt that Americans have? It's not even home mortgages, it's student loans.
Exactly.
There you go. But until these people can wake up and draw some conclusions for themselves, there's nothing that you can really do. You can't, if history has taught us nothing else, it teaches us that you can't fix stupid. Some people just don't get it, and they don't want to get it.
Right.
There are people right now, farmers and what have you, who if we could reverse time, we could get the Thanos glove and we could reverse time and go back to this election between Kamala and Trump, they would vote for Trump again. Because they're in many ways addicted to the whiteness. It's a very peculiar situation to find people who are addicted to something that has no value in regards to those who are making decisions.
So, Doc, do you think that the Panthers were rejecting America and their system, or were they just saying, look, we need a better reality for Black people? within the American system.
They're rejecting the system because they understand, and they are correct in their understanding, that the problem that we have is capitalism. And until it falls, there's nothing else you can even talk about doing. What are you expecting to become? And this is the argument that many Black folk have. They don't have a problem with capitalism. They got a problem that we the lowest man on the totem pole. And if they were on top, they would do the exact same thing to white folk that they do to us. The Panthers are not looking at it that way. The Panthers are talking about the idea of socialism, and you can't separate Huey P. Newton from Mao Zedong. You can't separate. You just can't. If you understand Newton and what he's actually talking about. Huey talks about in his book Revolutionary Suicide. He had been arrested for the shooting of Officer Fry and was in many ways being transported. And he talks about this interaction that he had with a law enforcement officer. And Huey says, I don't hate him. There's a part of me that just pities him. And you think about, why would you pity this man who is working to take you from one jail to a prison? And Huey says, because he had to agree to a meager life versus homelessness in exchange for his dignity. And in many ways, when you look at the average working stiff, that's what his life is. He has to find a way. He has to inject himself by any means necessary into a capitalist system that will give him enough financial resources for him to be able to take care of his offspring, his responsibilities. However, if you're Black and you have one misstep, they will never let you in regards to significant gainful employment ever again, which is going to lead you to prison. Let's just be honest about it. You're going to prison.
Wow. So their approach, the Panthers' practical approach to community building and their economic vision, all comes from Chairman Mao.
No, I wouldn't say that. What it is the idea of collectivism, that the community has the ability to save itself. The community just needs to understand that it has to pool its resources. You have to remember that a part of what the left is talking about, especially this radical left, and it's where, many people will say, well, are y'all talking about not talking about racism anymore? No, we're not talking about getting rid of race. However, what happens if Black folk are able to employ themselves and to take care of their community, and white folk can do the same thing, and brown folk can do the same thing, Asians can do the exact same thing? They're each able to stand with dignity alone on their own. Okay, it's similar thinking to why the U.S. and the United States of the Soviet Republic never got into a nuclear war. They have the ability to do it, but there are going to be enormous repercussions for you utilizing nuclear weapons. Most notably, the other side is going to use theirs. So every group needs to be able to assert its own will and protect itself against external aggression. Problem with that is that when you are a part of a capitalist system and you're a quote unquote numerical minority, you're going to be what other people feed on as if they're parasites. And for Black folk, it's even worse, because not only are you being fed on as if they are parasites, but you're also going to them to get an education that should be equipping you to end that relationship They're never going to teach you how to end that relationship. They're never going to even point out that relationship to you.
Mm. Wow. So you wouldn't call them separatists, though, right? You wouldn't call them separatists. They believed in
not racial separatists. No, not like what you would imagine with the Nation of Islam. No, they're not racial separatists. Huey is willing to form a alliance with white folk, and he says that the hesitation of Black leaders and Black organizations to form alliances with white groups is clearly a sign of their feelings of inferiority. He said you shouldn't be afraid to create an alliance with anybody that's going in the direction that you're going. But you have to also understand that the moment that they decide that they need to go left and it's in your best interest to go right, the alliance is over. He said the problem that Black folk have is that you don't form your own group and then create an alliance. What you do is you join their movement. And we saw that with the women's movement. These sisters went there and, y'all didn't talk about the Black woman's issues in it. Well, why do they have to? You join their group. You should have joined your own, created your own, and came up with your own platform, your own list of demands, and then said, listen, we'll get down with y'all under these conditions. And if they don't want to meet your conditions, then we ain't got nothing to talk about.
So like that, their program, their health clinics. I had read that.
Keep in mind that the Panthers are the first to have national testing for sickle cell.
Yeah, exactly. Now they did go to China and get some help learning some puncture stuff, and other medical stuff.
Acupuncture. Yeah.
Acupuncture, right. Why wasn't their health clinics even mentioned as a threat when what they were doing health-wise, even with sickle cell, that American health system was ignoring? Why wasn't that mentioned as this is something that's a threat to America, as like the children program?
Because American political leaders, they understand the larger goal, which is quite simply to eradicate the Panthers' ability to influence Black folk up here. Okay. If you get rid of that, then where are we at? Okay. The health thing and all those things, not necessarily that they're secondary or what have you, but when you're looking to destroy the Panthers, you need to find a way to disrupt their access to Black children. And they actually came up with what is, I would argue, a genius way of disrupting that. And the way that they disrupted it was quite simply, they started giving out free breakfast at public schools. American public schools didn't give out free breakfast. They didn't give a fuck if your kid was hungry when he got to school. That's your fault. But once the Panthers had met that need, you see the United States government go into the business of feeding children at the school. And what that does is it makes it much more convenient for busy parents. You don't have to take them over there to the Panther breakfast program. It may be in a Catholic church. It may be, in somebody's apartment. No, just go ahead and take them straight to school. Drop them off at school, and then you can go ahead and start your day. And now their curriculum has changed, and what do you do with that? And you have to remember that we often talk about the counterintelligence program and it attacking the Panthers. The FBI's apparatus of destroying the Panthers, it goes all the way down to arranging for Catholic priests who have allowed the Panthers to use their church and their cooking facilities to feed children to be transferred from that diocese to somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a comprehensive attack.
Wow, that's deep. That's really deep. When we're looking at the Panthers, you know, they're often framed as an opposition to the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
How did their work, particularly the survival programs, the children, feeding the children, the clinics, offer a different version of empowerment that went beyond the legal fight for integration when you compare that to civil rights?
Well, you have to remember that Panthers are created October 15, 1966. Most people agree that the last of the, it looks like I'm frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen.
Okay.
But we can still hear you though.
Oh, you can still hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
The last major march of the civil rights movement is actually in 1966, the same year that the Panthers were created, and it is a continuation of James Meredith's The March Against Fear. Meredith being the first Negro to ever go to Ole Miss. But the civil rights movement is declining when the Panthers are created. You know, the apex of the civil rights movement, its greatest achievement, is going to be in 1964 and 65 when Lyndon Baines Johnson signs the Civil Rights Act of 64 and the Voting Rights Act the following year. 10 days later, the Watts Rebellion happens. So it brings into question all of these things, you know, because it didn't touch non-Southern areas and what have you. So what you're dealing with is quite simply the Panthers are advancing a politic that is feeding and talking to disgruntled young civil rights workers. You know, Dr. King talks about this in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? He says that the same people who are today screaming Black Power and expressing being how disgruntled they are, they were last week, they were inside the civil rights movement. And he said what it is the disappointment that comes from the lack of tangible gains. Okay. So in many ways, when you're talking about the idea of Black Power and its ascension and its operation and what have you, you have to just understand that Black folk are at a different point at that point. And so much of the civil rights movement was predicated upon the idea of voting rights across the Southern theater. People in Chicago could always vote.
Right.
People in Oakland could always vote. And it's a whole different ballgame. And we saw that when Dr. King took on Richard Daley in Chicago and got his ass kicked. Okay, it's a different ballgame. So what they're talking about, and I say that with also the caveat that at the same time that you see working class and poor Black folk kind of divorcing themselves from nonviolent civil disobedience and the idea of integration, you have the Negro elite, or those who are going to be the Negro elite. They are in every way trying to integrate still. They're going to PWIs. This is the heyday of affirmative action. This was supposed to be your moment where you got your reparations and you were able to make some significant headway in America.
So the people that were benefiting from affirmative action at this time, they were definitely against. Would you say that they were definitely against what the Panthers were doing, even with their free breakfast and their health clinics?
Well, I mean, you gotta look at it this way. Let's say that your child, okay, has an opportunity to go to Stanford. Okay. What is that child going to Stanford for? To get an education. And keep in mind, it's 2025. Black folks still send their kids to school to get an education because they think it will translate into a job. Okay. That child is going to, I'm not going to say holds the potential to, they're going to make more money by going to Stanford, going to Ohio State, going to Penn than anybody that has had your DNA code, your genetic code in your family has ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Is that progress?
In a way, yeah.
See, in a way, yeah, depending upon how you view the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they're going to go to school, they're going to learn from white folk, they're going to learn white values, they're going to have some white connections.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to buy a house because they learn that the biggest investment that you're ever going to have is going to be an investment in purchasing a home. They're buying a home in the suburbs. The goal is no longer to come back and run the family grocery store. Y'all been doing that for 30, 40 years. Well, we got, Ray them. We can teach them how to run. But you go off to IBM, learn there. Okay. Time magazine had this brilliant cover during the 1970s. And it was titled, it's definitely a jab at Black nationalism. It said the new Black power. And it was a cover that had 4 or 5 Black men who were the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. The message there is very clear. This is the moment that y'all been waiting for. This is the moment where you can go in. So would you want your child, as a thinking adult, to go off and get a school, go to school and get a job, get an education, get a job, make more money than anybody could ever imagine? Okay. And you got to remember that at this moment of 2025 right now, Black men are barely making above 50,000. That's 2025. So can you imagine what they were making in 1965?
Right.
Okay. So you have that going on right there, just the raw monetary aspect of it, helping the past and building a legacy going forward, which is principally what we're talking about. Or do you want them to go get down with Huey and Bobby and patrol law enforcement officers? Which path you going to choose for your child?
Yeah, send them to school.
See, send them to school. And it's the reason why, because Huey wanted to integrate the bourgeoisie into the Panther program, but he couldn't get them because they see a future within the American system. Okay. We're now finally, Black folk became equal with white folk in 1965. We're finally seeing a moment where we're going to be let in. And you want to ruin it by being a revolutionary? It's the reason why they had to get the brothers off the block. The lumpen proletariat, as Karl Marx refers to them as. That's why the Panther ranks are full of people from the hood. Because those who were going off to colleges, they weren't trying to mess with the Panthers. I would venture to guess that right now, if you came up with a new version of the new Black Panther Party, how many collegians do you know are going to pick up a gun and go and patrol officers?
None. Doc, analyzing the economic philosophy behind these programs. First, like I said, I thought they were paying for it, but now that I'm having the understanding that the white rich celebrities are the ones that's paying for these programs.
You got a whole bunch of different, because you got to think that these are 18, 19, 20-year-old people. They are not sitting on no money. Let's just be honest. They're not working full time. And if one or two of them was working full time, how much you think that brother making? Let's be honest. He ain't even breaking 20,000. Might not even be breaking 18. Okay. And he still got to live off of that little meager money that he made before he give a donation to the Panther Party. So Huey, and this was one of the charges that the federal government put against Huey. They put a extortion charge against Huey.
Mm-hmm.
And Huey had a philosophy, and it was quite simply that if you're doing business within the Black community, you need to kick in.
Right.
Okay. Now that see, you say right, but under the right hands, that's extortion. Because what you're saying to me is that if I don't give money or give, let's say for the free breakfast for children program, I got a little grocery store. You're saying that if I don't give 10 dozen eggs, y'all gonna boycott me?
Yeah.
That's extortion.
How?
If I don't do this, you gonna do that.
But that's the American way. We have a right to say where we're gonna shop at.
No, that's not the American way. When you're Black and you got a prosecutor who's been told to find anything that they can bring up against you. And it's one of my favorite movies, and part of it is because of the backstory and its relationship to the Panthers, the Mac. You want to use all this grimy Oakland Bay Area scenery to as a setting for your scenes? Y'all need to pay us then. You want to sell some PUSSY on this corner, girl? You and your pimp need to kick some money in to help uplift the community. So you add that money along with the money that you're gonna get, the loan dollar that you're gonna get from white folk. You might just be able to, stay afloat, because you're gonna need money to run an organization.
Right.
And the Panthers, one of their greatest fundraisers was the Black Panther Party newspaper. And that turns into a problem, because the people in New York, the people in Houston, the people in New Orleans, wherever you're at, they sell the papers, send the money back to Oakland, and the FBI begins to send them bogus letters about how people in Oakland are living.
Wow.
And the natural skepticism of Black folk, and I'm sure you'd have been in these situations before, that, when there's a gap there, he over there living good. He ain't kick me nothing, blah. And so you have natural distrust that is going there. So yeah, it's they're getting money from wherever they can get it.
Wow. So then there was not a economic program that they put together to be able to literally fund what they do, and they're only getting their money from the people that quote unquote shake down.
They actually start a shoe factory. They start these little endeavors where they're trying to employ Black folk within the community. They're very clear that you need to look around and see what you can produce. And when you produce it, the profit that you're going to get off of that, we're going to use that to, in many ways, uplift the community to fund the revolution. Now, we had this great moment. I don't remember which Panther leader it was, but he went and told the others that the FBI had offered him like $25,000 to turn against the Panthers, to become, one of their covert agents, and he turned it down. And Huey them told him, said, "You fool, you should have took the money and came and told us. And we would have utilized the money. We just wouldn't have told you nothing." So it's funding a revolution is going to be, you need an infusion of money. And if you don't have that, you're in trouble.
Do you remember the irritated genie?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he did it. He was teaching one day, and he said the FBI approached him and offered him some money for information. And he said, "Yeah, I took the money. I sure did. I didn't tell him the truth, but I still took the money."
I took the money.
But can you trust that? Even though they told you I took the money and I just didn't tell them the truth. There's
that black skepticism and doubt that black folk carry along with them. Okay, because now you're like, wait a minute, hold on. That brother, so he's trying to be a double agent. How we know he ain't a triple agent?
Right.
And it's wanted to go back to Marx's ideas and the idea of the lumpen proletariat. He said, you can't build a party upon them because they're actually too poor to be loyal. Because if someone comes up to you and can solve all of your economic woes right now, all you got to do is go down there and join the Black Panther Party. Do you do it? Because that's the path. And the thing is that once you start getting, and Negro, you ain't getting cash. You're going to get checks. Okay, you get these checks so that now we got a record. So that when you try and act up, we sending copies of these checks and all the correspondence we didn't have with your stupid self to the Panther leaders. So act up if you want to. You have to think, Fred Hampton killed as a result of information provided by William O'Neill, an informant. Carl Hampton killed based upon the information provided by an informant. And after a while, because if we're having a conversation, if four of us is having a conversation, and it's a private, important, secret conversation, and what was said in that conversation gets out into the public, who told?
One of us that was in that room.
One of us told. So now we're all looking at each other like, yeah, okay. And the truth of the matter is quite simply, none of us could have told. They just got the room bugged.
Wow, that's deep.
Think about it. Just think about it this way. Let's say, you married, and then some of Panther sisters looking kind of right. You talking to one of the captains? Yeah, man, me and Sister Sheila, man, she wear them pants again. I want to get up in them pants. Okay. And the next thing you know, you go ahead and get in them pants, and somebody informs Sister Sheila of what you did. Who told? You can't. And can you be talked down from the rage you gonna be in when you see the captain, or is this a on-site down that he getting ready to get?
Exactly.
And the brother has done nothing. It's just that they caught that conversation. And it's just what it is. I mean, once you're surrounded, you can't trust nobody. Do you know what level of paranoia you getting ready to be under? But you can't trust anybody. You said something to your wife and it got out. Oh, you just an old talkative bitch now, huh? see, now you in a whole nother ball game. Who you motherfucker, blah blah. And the thing is that they're able to regurgitate what it is, and FBI agents, if you read their memoirs, they'll tell you. They said you sit around and listen to black folk talk all day. It became a game to us to see if we could replicate their slang and their word choice. And we put it in a letter and we send it and we sit around and listen to the tape to see if they had got, yeah. When Eldridge Cleaver Eldridge Cleaver goes abroad. He's in Algeria. There was a group of Panthers who were going to Algeria to visit Eldridge. Okay. Just going to check on him. He's a minister of information.
Right.
Yeah. And him and Huey had some beef with each other, but they're going to check on Eldridge. FBI hears that them brothers is on their way to Algeria, sent a letter to Eldridge. Said they're a hit squad that's coming to rub you out. They're Newton loyalists. Okay. Wow. Eldridge preempts the attack by kicking all three or four of them out of the party. Now, Eldridge never talks about why he put them out. So the Panthers back in Oakland say, man, we told you he was crazy. we told you he was crazy. And all the conversations are being recorded by the FBI. So they turn around and write an anonymous letter to Eldridge about what was said in that meeting. And then discussing what it is that how he feel about what's happening. They sent an anonymous letter to the Panthers. You're surrounded, man. Damn. You're no match at 18, 19, 20. You know, they called Eldridge Papa Rage because he was like 27. He was the old cat. So what kind of restraint you think some brothers off the block is 18, 19, 20 years old, they talking. Right. And his recording devices all around him. Damn. Okay, so here you and Brother Jenkins had a private conversation and it got out. So now you got to jump on him with 2 good feet next time you see him.
Exactly.
You out here snitching, blah blah. And the brother ain't done nothing.
Right. Right.
How do you weather that? How do you reasonably be with a brother in a meeting or whatever, and he didn't clean jumped across the table, trying to choke the shit out of you for some reason that he can't even articulate. He just keeps saying, you know what you did? You know what you did? You know, and it brings to light the larger question. Okay. Can anybody be trusted? Okay. What level of trust can you put in people? You know, the white radicals, they had a speech that Bobby Seale, they were trying to raise money for Huey's defense. So Bobby and the Eldridge was always traveling throughout the nation, lecturing. You gonna go to the white lecture, okay? Because they paying, okay? They paying well, okay? Well, maybe a week and a half before Bobby was scheduled to lecture,
right?
FBI sent his mama a note. Said that there was a bombing up there and this and that, and we, you know, and this is coming from a friendly comrade. So we don't think it's very safe for, you know, for our chairman to come up here, you know, because we don't want nothing to happen to him. Bobby doesn't show up because he thinks that somebody's going to try and kill him. Okay. And the white radicals are offended because he stood them up. and they had been building up this event in this venue the entire time.
Mm.
So now you got two, what should be two allies, angry at each other.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You know, it reminds me of a funny story. When I was living in Illinois and we were selling the house, and I'm having a conversation with the woman I'm with, and it's just something I've only told her, never told nobody else. And next thing you know, I get this anonymous letter, and I'm reading this shit, and I'm like, God damn, they done got in here and bugged the damn house. You know, I'm looking around and shit, trying to find where the motherfucking bug was. You know, and I'm looking at her, I'm talking to her. I'm like, these motherfuckers done bombed the house because the shit that I said, I only told you, and I'm reading it in this goddamn anonymous letter. It never dawned on me that she the one who wrote the goddamn letter. I'm fucking thinking that they
went insane.
Yeah.
They went insane. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, that paranoia will get you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Get your mind rolling, and you're like, man, hold up. No, hell no. I know who said it. And next thing you know, you involved in a fight to end all fights.
Damn. So, you know, they now I didn't know nothing about their newspaper. So, but they sold their newspaper and they were selling the Red Book, right?
Yeah. Well, the Red Book thing was happened at I want to say Stanford. Because you can sell the Red Book to them white radicals. They into that. They think that once again it's California. These elite leftists who think that they're gonna overthrow, they want to act like they're not part of the problem. So yeah, they found a wholesaler, and I want to say, if I remember the numbers correctly, they would buy the Red Books for 30 cents each and then sell them on the I want to say Sather Gate on the Stanford campus. They would sell it for $1 each. So you're talking about a 70 cent profit for each one. And they were selling as many as they could get, and people were buying it. You have to remember that. No, it wasn't Stanford. It was Cal Berkeley. The Berkeley campus. Berkeley is the epicenter was the epicenter for white radicalism. Yeah, that's where the radical people went. Yeah.
Interesting. So again, dealing with communism, and they were influenced by Marxist theory and the international liberation movement. But what was their specific political vision for Black people?
That's hard to say, because the Panthers are going to go from its original iteration is the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. That is a community-based organization. And then later, the vision is going to change. They're no longer talking about just self-defense. They're talking about intercommunalism, where you will have all of these different satellites who are able to independently stand on their own and be able to network with each other as it benefits each other. So when you're talking about the actual goal, especially when you're talking about Huey's mind for Black folk, it's going to shift over time. And it's one of the reasons why when you see many of these contemporary reiterations of the Panthers, these poor facsimiles of the Panthers, they invariably are getting things wrong, because they're trying to create one vision. And if he was nothing else, Huey P. Newton, number one, is a genius, but number two, he's like Du Bois. He never stops growing. He never stops moving. So there is no singular vision that he's going to have for Black folk.
Wow. And I want to make sure I understand this right. He didn't believe in the American political system, though. That's clear.
No, he's not endorsing capitalism. And much of what you see the Panthers doing it's not, and I'm talking about ideologically, and especially dealing with Huey, it's not predicated upon the idea of where they're going so much as it is predicated upon what they know they dislike, which is capitalism. And that's how you'll see him dealing with communist leaders, socialist regimes, and what have you. They're willing to endorse and try anything beyond capitalism.
So they didn't want integration. They didn't want to do that. But they also didn't want to throw.
No, I'm not going to say they didn't want integration, because they're not talking about racial separatism. What they really want is the fall of capitalism. They want the means of production to be owned by the worker class, beginning and end. That's what it is. Huey goes so far. And you got to remember, Huey's talking during the 1960s and the early 1970s. He makes this very interesting predicament, this prediction. He says, what you have to understand about capitalism is that capitalism is like an octopus that is willing to put its tentacles anywhere it can, where it can extract poor labor to increase its what? Profit margin. He says there are no American corporations. There are no corporations that you can assign to a certain land, because with the necessity of capitalism is quite simply, they're going to have to find new victims that they can suck the blood out of. And that's exactly what's going on now. Exactly. Okay.
So then, Doc, would you say he did want the overthrow of the United States government?
Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt, yeah. The problem is that the people didn't understand that what he's actually is saying is, you freed me, now go free yourself. Think about the power of the people that had to be behind Huey for him to have been convicted of killing a cop and shooting another one. And he's eventually going to be released on a quote unquote technicality. Come on. That trial has been, that sentence was commuted by the way black folk were acting in the street. Like I said, quite simply, you hear at the Panther school, black is beautiful, free Huey. The Free Huey campaign is a major campaign.
How long was it did he serve in jail?
I think he only did like maybe 3 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Mhm.
Wow. And so do you think if he would have verbally said, my objective is to overthrow the government of America, that people would follow him based on that statement, or would he be rejected based on that statement?
Black folk would reject that statement. And he does say that publicly, that's what the Panthers are attempting to do. They're trying to get rid of American capitalism. Okay.
Oh.
But black folk are not politically astute enough to really understand what we're calling for when we say that. Okay. And part of it is, let's be honest and let's be fair about this. Many black folk are unwilling to even endorse the idea of overthrowing the government, because they truly believe that their ship is going to come in one day. It just ain't happened yet. But it will happen if we just stay here long enough.
Wow. So, Doc, what destroyed the Panthers?
Internal and external problems. Internally, you have a young organization filled with young people who are trying to create revolution as they advance. They're trying to address these issues, but it's very difficult to address these issues when you have a monster that is attacking you. So you have internal problems, but the external attacks that come against the Panthers are they can't survive that. There's no way they can survive that. And the U.S. government understands that they can't survive that. So it's internal and external.
But you believe the external was greater than the internal?
Yes. Yes. You can't deny that when you have local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies working together, you have judges who are working with them. You can't survive that. There's no way that you can survive that, you know. And the organization has, like I told you, that there came a moment when they shut the entire party down because they've been infiltrated. You know, everybody looking at each other skeptically. You know, and it's not unusual to have a situation where you're involved in a crime, y'all get arrested, and here comes one of your comrades walking in as a witness for the prosecution. And they had a term for them. They called them agent provocateurs. People who would come in and say, yo, what we need to do is go knock this bank off. Y'all go knock a bank off. All y'all get arrested and they testify against you. And you find out that they were agent provocateur, that they were working for the state the entire time. You gotta remember that that's one of the reasons why Huey P. Newton never trusted Geronimo Pratt, because Geronimo was a former Marine, and who better to infiltrate the Panthers than a former Marine? He's already worked for the government, kind of how you were talking about, brother talking about, yeah, I took the money, but can you really trust that? Can you trust somebody that was a Marine?
Wow. Now, even when Geronimo got locked up, did he trust him then, or still he's like, no, they gotta see you?
Huey never really warmed up to Geronimo. No.
Wow.
No, and I get it. I understand why. This is a former Green Beret, and you think that we can trust him? He worked for the government.
But didn't and I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question, but how we have these imaginations of what these people, we believe these people were about and stood for. We don't know the actual facts, but in my mind, Geronimo is a big man, in my head, that he loved our people. He stood for our people. He went to jail for our people, got out of jail, got the money and served our people, and then, died.
Well, okay. With Geronimo, let's spend a moment on him. Geronimo is not the standard recollections of Geronimo Pratt are they are not standard within former Panther members. They're not. One of the highest ranking female leaders of the Black Panther Party ever told me to my face, was like, I can't believe that y'all are giving so many props to somebody who was nothing but the driver for Bunchy Carter.
What?
She said he was a chauffeur. That's what he was. Geronimo wasn't no soldier for the Panthers. And that's her recollection of who he was. That he was Bunchy's driver. He drove Bunchy around. Said he wasn't no major player in the Black Panther Party.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing about, these are people that you're talking about. Now she could have had an axe to grind with Geronimo for whatever reason. Who knows? And this is someone who was involved in the shooting that happened on a UCLA campus. She was the cause of the shooting, if you want to be honest, that led to Bunchy Carter and John Huggins being murdered.
Wow, we got time to go into that? I want to hear.
Oh man, nah. We talk about that in private because
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Wow.
she's still around. So
Wow. And so our last clip we're going to play, we're going to watch Bobby Seale in this interview. And he talks about the final destruction of the Panthers as well.
The angry Panther. Yeah, Bobby's the angry Panther.
How much jealousy and envy there was in the party between Bobby and Huey?
Bobby to this day is upset, gets angry. Okay, when I interviewed Bobby, I thought I was going to have to beat him up. He's very angry that when you think about the Black Panther Party, you think about Huey.
Right.
You don't think about Bobby. And the truth of the matter is that I think that a part of that is because Huey was the one that killed the cop, and Huey was locked away. But when you look at their contributions to the party, you're kind of hard pressed to say that Huey had a bigger contribution than Bobby, because Bobby's on the street. Bobby's the man.
I want to pull up this picture real quick before we go to that. And I want to talk about, because this picture is a very powerful picture. And I want to get your take on it. Why does this picture resonate? Okay, let's share.
I knew that was the picture. I actually have a T-shirt with that image on it.
So why does this picture resonate? Why does this picture seems to me to define Black Panther?
Because people don't know anything about Panther history. And if you were to read Revolutionary Suicide, he says in that book that this is the most misrepresentative picture that he's ever taken in his life. He hated that picture.
Really?
Yeah. The picture paints Huey as a cultural nationalist. Okay. He might as well put a dashiki on. You can see he's holding an African spear. You got those African masks, but that's not who Huey was. Okay. Not at all. He's not a cultural nationalist. He's a revolutionary nationalist. But these images, they're just images, and we put meaning on them. And for the Panthers, the blessing and the curse has been the blessing part of the gun is quite simply it has allowed them to remain relevant almost 60 years after their genesis. The curse of it is that the gun is blinding to Black folk, and they don't study the ideology. They don't read what they read. They just think that, the Mao Zedong great quote, power flows out the barrel of a gun. People use that revolutionary over and over, and Huey comes out and he says, listen, he said, I never said that power was the gun. Okay. And so you have that, you look at a sister like Angela Davis, Kathleen Cleaver would fall into this as well. How disappointing and degrading and disrespectful it is for you to have all your contributions that you made to the struggle and to the people reduced to a damn hairstyle. People can identify Angela Davis, they can identify Kathleen Cleaver, but they can't tell you anything they wrote or what they said.
Correct.
And this image is kind of the same way. That doesn't represent who Huey is.
Mm. Did he say in his book what picture that he's taken really represents who he was?
No.
No.
No, but it ain't that one.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Wow. Because to me, that picture right there is Black Panther. Period. Point blank. It is beginning and the end.
That's problematic because that that in that left hand that African spirit. No, that's not who they were. Not at all.
Mm.
And one could argue that the iconic picture of Newton and Seal standing in front of the Black Panther Party office. If you look at that photo, Bobby has a handgun on his hip. Huey has a shotgun.
Mm.
First off, they only had 2 guns in the entire organization at that time. And second off, Huey couldn't carry a handgun because he was on probation for stabbing a brother named Odell Lee with a steak knife at a party.
Mm.
So Bobby had to carry the handgun, and Huey had to have a shotgun.
What was their beef with the Nation of Islam?
It's rivalry, man. It's just rivalry between organizations. You're trying to get the same groups of individuals. The Nation of Islam is full of the brothers off the block, the lumpen proletariat as well. The biggest beef between the Panthers and the Nation of Islam, ironically, or predictably, happens in Chicago between Minister Farrakhan and Fred Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think that you got a 3-headed monster, black monster in Chicago. You got Fred Hampton, you got Minister Farrakhan, and you got Jeff Fort, the Peace Stone Nation. Okay, so they're pulling from the same groups and what have you. And I think I told you about the conflict that Fred Hampton had with Minister Farrakhan.
Mm-hmm.
The dear minister gave a message, and he's addressing the Panthers, and he says quite simply, I've always been, because the Panthers referred to police officers as pigs, and Mr. Farrakhan says, I always been taught that you are what you eat, pointing out the Panthers eat pig. Okay. Just, and you can hear Minister Farrakhan saying that. And Hampton, called him on it. They had a meeting, and here you got the FOI there, and you got the nation of the Panthers show up. They with their boy, gonna back him up, and people who were there said that Fred Hampton asked Mr. Farrakhan. He says, "Are you a man?" And Mr. Farrakhan said, "Yes, I'm a man." He says, "So am I to take it that you eat men?" He said, "Okay, brother, I got your point. I got it right there. Okay, I get it." Yeah. So you have the natural rivalry that's occurring between black organizations. To move it back to the West Coast, Ron Karinga's US organization and the Panthers, they were killing each other. George and Larry Steiner are the killers of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, and that's a whole nother story. I had the good fortune of sitting next to, on an airplane, a brother named Roger Hughes. He married the cousin. Yeah, she would have been the cousin of George and Larry Steiner. And I found that out at at their wedding party. And one of the Steiner cousins said, yeah, we had 2 cousins who got involved. And they started telling me the story. I said, "Are you talking about George and Larry Steiner?" And they said, yeah. Those are our cousins. I said, let me go get my older brother. He would know the story better. And the story is one that it's incredible, literally incredible. They escaped from a maximum. The story is they escaped from a maximum security prison and were never seen again.
Mm.
That's the official story. And one of the guy that I was talking about, the guy I was talking to, his cousin, he said, "You want your mind to really be blown?" And I said, "I can't imagine my mind being more blown than," because his story, his part of it was that his aunt and uncle were actually at the prison. They were allowed to stay there for 2 weeks.
Mm.
And they said that a night came where these white guys came and said, "Yo, okay, it's time for y'all to go." And they left the prison, and George and Larry were shuttled away onto a private jet and were situated somewhere in South America. And the understanding was they can never come back to the U.S. One of them came back and was immediately arrested. However, at this party I was at, he said, "Just stay right here." And he goes and he retrieved these two. You can see a sister and you can tell that she ain't fully black. She's like exotical. He told me, he said, I don't remember if it was George or Larry, but he said, this is his two daughters right here. They go to the University of Houston. Yeah. So the U.S. government had arranged for them to live out their days somewhere else. Yeah. So it's a lot of movement and a lot of things that occur that would just blow your mind when you really get to a point where you're like, okay, the story that is published is actually not what happened at all.
Wow. So let's check out this video that Bobby Seale did on his interview, as I call it, kissing the fake Jew ass for money. And
absolutely crystal clear that, in fact, the FBI did have. With the passage of time, it's become absolutely crystal clear that, in fact, the FBI did have a program of undermining the activities of the Panther Party. In fact, I think the Senate Select Committee on Government Intelligence Activities in '76 said the FBI engaged in lawless tactics against Black Panther Party and responded to deep-seated societal problems by fomenting violence and unrest. Pretty tough indictment of the central agent of government. Yet it's interesting, I've read in your work that you don't believe that it was the FBI and only the FBI was responsible for the demise of the Panther.
What I call the final demise is different. I'm not going to take the FBI off the hook. They violated our constitutional rights. I think Wesley Swearingen, in his recent book, FBI Secret, without the press function, exemplified that. He's an FBI agent who's revealing real murder tactics, particularly John Huggins and others. Now, FBI violated our rights. They fermented that split between Eldridge Cleveland and Huey Newton, all of that. Now, let's get into the fall of '73. Elaine Brown is running around telling little lies on people so she can get close to you. I think somebody said this about you, Jim, servant, and they're disrespecting you. And one day, Huey, beginning to snort cocaine, abusing that, jumped on a rank-and-file party member and beat the hell out of him. A whole herd of 100 and some odd party members just left. Who the hell do you think he is? And people were peppering off because of this kind of crap. I'm jamming you. We put you in the hospital twice behind accusing us. That Dr. Small, I mean, we actually put him in the hospital. I'm not trying to take away Huey's early contribution. I'm telling you the truth of what happened. Right. You need to know the whole truth. You only have a half a truth. It's the biggest lie in the world. This is what happened in the real demise in late '73 and early '74. In May of 1974, I discovered Huey Newton trying to take over the drug trade. We've dwindled down to 250 in Oakland now. Oakland, San Francisco, Beret. That's the only branch and chapter operation going, except for a skeleton crew with a free ambulance program in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. There's no Chicago. All the chapters have been broken down. They don't exist anymore. Behind that mayoralty campaign. So now you see the real demise that's beyond COINTELPRO. Unless Huey Newton and Elaine Brown was working for COINTELPRO. So this is the trouble with so many party members. They're hurt, some of them, to this day. Most of them are not, because a lot of them are PhDs and masters and that. But my point is, this is the true demise. Now, 250 so people left. I'm trying to figure out what I do with it. Do I kill him? That's not me.
This is Huey Newton.
Yes, in May and June into July of 1974. I can't kill Huey. I'm not a murderer. I had organized 5,000 people while he's sitting in jail. I confronted him with this. I says, I resign. You need to resign. The Black Panther Party is over. Oh, doped up. I'm trying to keep that. I says, you're not keeping anything together, Huey. You never kept anything together. You don't even know these party members. I'm the one that predicted everything. I'm the one that taught them demographics and how to set up programs, etc. I'm the one that spurned. I'm the one that broke down quantitative increase and dialectic freedom. You didn't do it. The party is over. I'm going to resign on what you resign. Party's over. I walks out. Get out of my house. You ain't nothing but a punk. I said, one thing I'm not, dude. You know I'm no punk. I'm 6 years older than you. He knows that if you do me wrong, I will hurt you. I walk out. Next thing you know, I decide I'm going to leave. When I leave, I'm willing to bet. I'm not going to even let those 250 party members know I left. When they find out I'm gone, they're going to walk off. Sure in hell, 4 weeks later, Lane Brown jumps up in a meeting and says, Bobby Seale has defected from the Black Panther Party. Guess what happened? 75% of more than 200 people in the auditorium. So the chairman's gone. I'm out of here. And they rolled.
Now, to me, that nigga was happy.
He was what now?
He was happy. He was happy that it was over. He was happy. He was the final architect in the destruction of the Panther organization. And he didn't have a problem admitting it.
Well, let me say about not having a problem with admitting it. You have to filter that through the idea of people still associate the Panthers almost exclusively with Huey, not with Bobby. And Bobby has been trying to get his version and his story out for the longest time. What he said right there is the absolute truth of what happened. That's what happened. You know, you want to talk about why the Panthers died, why the Panthers ended. That's how it ended right there. Yeah.
And so to me, it seems kind of selfish. And I don't know whether Huey was doped up on drugs and trying to take over the drug business. I have no thought of that.
He was, and he was trying to take over the dope business. Yeah, he was. And
what would have
you gotta remember, Huey was killed by a crack dealer because he was robbing them cats under the guise that I'm Huey P. Newton of the Black Panther Party.
So what should have, because he kept saying, I can't kill him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, why is that even an option? Why you keep saying you can't kill him? Why would you go there that you got to kill your brother?
Huey's a different person, man. Huey's out of his mind. Huey pistol whipped a Panther leader to the point where one of the bodyguards who was there, I interviewed him for my dissertation. He said, I'm surprised that her head wasn't ripped off her head.
He pistol whipped a female?
Yeah. And she left that night.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta remember that although what Bobby is saying is true, the Panthers don't die that night. They keep going on. And Huey goes further and further and further into his addiction. Okay. Huey has in many ways, the pressure was too much. You want to talk about surveillance driving someone insane? Yeah. They got Huey.
Wow. So the pressure from the FBI made him turn to drugs.
I think that there was drug use earlier. Okay. Before 73, 74. I'm almost positive of it. I mean, come on, let's situate them back in that time. Who's the for Black folk, who's the signature music group that that represented Black folk? It's Parliament. It's the Funkadelic. And you can't look at Parliament and not see drugs. You can't look at, I mean, come on, the Mothership Connection coming down, Star Child, Citizens of the Universe. These brothers are high. They smoking weed without a doubt. And come on, by the early 1970s, white folk are addicted to that white girl, to that cocaine, that powder cocaine. Black folk are on heroin. We're shooting dope into our veins. And once again, these are people who are involved in that culture. So it's not shocking or startling that Huey, would be addicted to cocaine, to crack cocaine. He started with white girl, because once again, who they hanging out with, who they socializing with? Jane Fonda and them cats. The white folk got that white girl available. Okay. And then eventually he made his way to crack. I mean, it's a fall, and when you talk about the internal pressures, the internal fractures, drug abuse, sexual abuse, all types of shit is going on. These is brothers off the block. These are former gangbangers that you're trying to politicize. Try to explain dialectical materialism to them. How many of them know who Mao Zedong is? Beyond, power flows out the barrel of a gun.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why it's very, it shouldn't be questioned that, and you heard Bobby insinuate this. He said, you don't even know the troops. They don't know you. They ain't never met you. Huey is off giving lectures and interviews at universities with Eric Erickson. They don't understand what he's saying. They want to hear a fiery speech. Eldridge will give you that. Bobby will give you that. Huey ain't giving you that. Huey's mind is so further advanced than theirs. They can't even comprehend what Huey talking about.
Wow. That's something to know, for all that he did, that he went out as a crackhead. That's God damn. That's rough.
Well,
that's rough.
Yeah. I mean, it's Huey was addicted to crack cocaine, and it's what it comes down to. There ain't no way to get around that. That's the historical record of what happened.
So then, Doc, we could really say that he betrayed the revolution? We could say that?
I mean, You can say that he was human. He was human. Beyond that, he has the same human frailties that everybody else has.
But revolutionary is supposed to live by a different standard. If you betray the revolution, then you have to lose your head.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, Huey's great point that the revolutionary is a doomed man. He'll either die on the battlefield or he will succeed at the revolution and no longer be needed by his people. He's doomed either way. You have to really think about having the organization. You're the symbolic head of the Black Panther Party. And for what pressure is that? What weight is that? Especially when you begin to talk about what are some of the things that Huey's receiving as far as the counterintelligence program goes. What are those messages? What is his life like? What is his, it's a whole lot that goes into it. He succumbed to an addiction, that probably began with the smoking of weed. It's 1960s. Weed was a gateway drug. You're dealing with these white folk, they got cocaine. When that dries up, can we get even higher? So you end up with crack.
So do you believe that maybe they did something to him in prison to make him go that way?
No, not at all. Not at all. I trust in what he wrote, in his words. He succumbed to an addiction.
Damn.
It's an ugly and an unfortunate story. I mean, but it's not an uncommon one. We all know people who have overdosed, people who have gotten killed in the drug trade. We probably know more of those people than we do people who died of natural causes.
That's just shit. That's rough.
It's a sobering thing. And then when you sit here and you realize that people have gravitated to the Panther Party solely because of the image, the icon of a Black Panther, the leather jackets, the berets, and what have you. Nobody is talking about Panther ideology anymore. They're not talking about the Panthers being internationalist. You have the new Black Panther Party that's in no way replicating what it is the original Black Panther Party advanced. The new Black Panther Party, it seemed under Khalid Muhammad, it presented itself almost as if it was a rogue, undisciplined group of former FOI members versus anything the Panthers did. The Panthers are welcoming white folk, doing alliances with white folk. What we're getting now is not that. The Panthers are talking about, left-wing politics, talking about overthrowing capitalism. Who Black that's talking about that right now? Even your Black political leaders are capitalists. Invite one of them to come give a speech and see what they say. They want to know how much they're going to get paid.
Wow. Oh boy. All righty. All right, Doc. We're going to go ahead and move to our closing comments. In your closing comments, can you address how the Panthers got our view of what they were so different from the reality that they were? How did that happen? What did we miss? Because it reminds me of how the government actually did with Malcolm X. They put Malcolm X on the stamp. You know, Malcolm would have never put himself on no damn United States stamp. Shit, no. You know what I'm saying? But they put him on the stamp, like, you know, yeah, Malcolm. I know Malcolm probably turning over in his grave. Look at these motherfuckers talking with me, you know? Like, damn.
To answer that question, we talk about history as if it's in these nice little packages, you know, nice and neat. You know, it's kind of the same thing that we're talking about, that we ended up talking about with Huey. We talk about Huey as if he was not a human, as if he didn't have the same human frailties that other people have. No, these are average, ordinary individuals who end up as the head of some organization or whatever. They're not superhuman. They're not necessarily unique in every way that you could imagine. So it's in the packaging of these nice little slivers of history that paves the road for misunderstanding, especially when you're talking about an organization that does something that is so startling and shocking to people, such as picking up the gun. People's fixation upon the gun, fixation upon a leather jacket, an afro, a hairstyle, a cultural expression, or what have you. It's not ideology. It's not the framework. It's not the bones of an organization, of what an organization thinks, what they believe, what their goals are, what their strategies are, what their tactics are. But it's an easy way to package some things for people. And I see it done all day, every day. It's one of the reasons why you see a figure like Donald Trump being able to stay afloat for so long, because he can give you a little snippet, a little package. It's not the whole story. It will never be the whole story. You wouldn't want the whole story, because the whole story is dense and in many ways nonsensical to you. So that's how that happens. And that's how, you know, if all you know is the gun, all you know is the afros, people are filling in the rest with what they want to fill it in with, even if it has no basis whatsoever in history. So that's how I would answer that, brother. And once again, man, just happy to be here. Happy to be here. This is the highlight of my day today. I've been nowhere all day. Today is a shut-in day for me. So,
wow. You know, I got one more question that popped in my head as you were talking. When I look at leaders like Minister Farrakhan, or just take, you know, not the individuals, take the organization, the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, you know, SNCC, CORE, all these organizations that the government worked on each and every one of them. He didn't leave none of them alone. He worked on all of them and was able to a point to crush them, except for the Nation of Islam. What ingredient does the Nation of Islam have that the other groups don't have? And if they had that same ingredient, would they been able to withstand the pressure, the destruction from the United States government?
Well, let's separate the Panthers from your question.
Okay.
Because it's kind of unfair to put the Panthers in there with that. So I'll talk about the Panthers last. The other organizations, the civil rights organizations, they timed out. When it was impossible for them to, when they found it impossible to deliver tangible gains, jobs, better educated. These were the things that they staked their claim on. That once we get a Civil Rights Act and a Voting Rights Act, that these things will naturally flow from them. That didn't happen. So in many ways, they become irrelevant. They've timed out because people were giving you enough time for you to be able to do those types of things. Okay. So in many ways, they kind of go by the wayside. Now, the reason I separate the Panthers from the other groups, I think the number is 263 actions were taken by the FBI's counterintelligence program. It's racial division of the counterintelligence program. Out of that 260 some actions, 216 of them were aimed at the Panthers. So they were at the center of the scope for the FBI. And you're dealing with a organization that tried to become not only just a national organization, but also an international one. And they rested so much of their stuff on distrustful people, okay, the lumpen proletariat, okay. And if you read, and matter of fact, I got both copies of my book. One of them, Bobby Seale actually signed when I interviewed him. If you go and you look at one of the most grievous concerns that the Panthers have, it is quite simply that they don't have a reliable intake process. They were so desperate for members, and you have to remember, like I said, the first 3 to 4 months, the only members of the Black Panther Party are Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, and Lil Bobby Hutton. So they're starving for members, especially in the Bay Area, where people were, like I said, that other group that was like, we demanded all white folk lead the face of the planet Earth by January 1st, 1967. You're competing against that with, we want jobs, we want education, we want housing. You ain't really sexy. So anybody who wanted to join the Panthers, I think that the intake cost was 50 cents. You fill out an application and you pay 50 cents and you're down. If you couldn't pay the 50 cents, we still let you get down. Okay. You don't know who's coming in. And the FBI is aware of the Panthers by December of 66. Now, the local agents, they say that they're a nothing group and we shouldn't do anything against them out of the fear that you're going to give them credibility. Just let them die out. They're going to die out like many of these other thousands of Black nationalist organizations. So they're under extreme pressure. And I mean extreme pressure. You know, you think about how many bogus letters Huey P. Newton received about people. Think about Huey actually being incarcerated and put in what he calls the soul breaker, a solitary confinement, all black padded cell. Only thing it had in it was in the center. It has a little hole where you can piss and shit, and you better not piss when you piss and shit. And he says it makes you after a while feel as if you're floating in space because you have no frame of reference. Okay. So the Panthers, they couldn't have survived. They cracked under the pressure, and they're young people, so there's no shame in that. Now, the Nation of Islam, what do they have that allowed them to weather? I believe that there's a discipline that comes with religious adherence. Okay. You're connected to a higher power. You're connected to God, versus these other organizations are just political organizations who are not honoring anything that is above them. And then let us be very clear. And I know that you can find this within the Panthers, probably non-existent within the civil rights organizations that we're talking about. The FOI is willing to go and whoop your ass for transgressions.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Versus the Panthers, whose ass you gonna whip? There were 4 of y'all talking, and it got out. Who told?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would argue that the Nation of Islam is not under the same pressure that the Panthers were. And the reason the Panthers were under so much pressure is that the Panthers are, number one, the leading Black Power era organization in the nation. And they are advancing a political viewpoint that is calling for Black folk to divorce themselves somewhat from race and to get down with the Young Patriots, the Young Lords, SDS, the Weathermen. They're trying to escape the stifling confines of Black nationalism. And the U.S. government knows enough to know that Black folk alone will never be able to do anything against this nation. But if they join with some of these radical white boys, now we got a problem. So that would be the difference, I would say. I think that the relationship, the adherence to a law, to a higher principle, is what the Nation of Islam has over other organizations. There's something magical, something mystical, enchanting about religious adherence. You know, when you look at the Guyana tragedy, those people died, you know, in the name of their God. So I think that's a critical point, a part of that. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was damn near anti-Black church. And we have numerous accounts of Eldridge Cleaver going to a Black church surrounded by Panthers, walking up in the middle of the sermon, cussing the preacher out, and operating from that position that if your religion has done as little for yours as ours has done for us, you need to drop it. So you got all those things going on. And the truth of the matter is that these are wild brothers off the block, period.
Wow. Awesome. Excellent program again, Doc. Excellent. I want to take this time out to welcome Maya. Peace and blessings, Queen. We're glad you made it. Big brother Donald Muhammad, assalamu alaikum. Big bro, we're glad you made it. Who else? Emerald Majesty, peace and blessings, Queen. We're glad you made it. Big brother Willie Rivers, peace and blessings, bro. We're glad you made it. Big brother Roy, peace and blessings, big bro. We are glad that you all have made it. We're thankful. We ask everybody to like and share the program. This was another awesome program that we did today. Excellent learning. Please go back and listen to it if you missed any of it, because it is definitely eye-opening. And I think that we owe a certain amount of gratitude for those who came before us to do whatever they thought that they could do to uprise, to help our people be in a better situation than we were in then and, now and what we were in. If I think, I could be wrong, but if Huey was still alive and, not on drugs, I think maybe he probably would still be active in some way of fighting for what's right for Black people. But we thank him for everything that he did do, because that was a sacrifice of his time, of his life energy. We thank all the Panthers for what they did do, because they made a sacrifice. I mean, God damn, to say that you're going to go, follow the police as they go in Black communities with your guns, that's a hell of a damn thing. That's a hell of a thing. So, we owe them that honor and respect, because that is definitely, I think, a revolutionary move, without a shadow of a doubt. Their free breakfast program, their medical programs, every school, damn church, civic organization for Black people, replicate that, just like they did. You can replicate that. So, hey, they showed the right way to get things done in that area. And, hell, the government themselves said, fuck it, we're going to take it over and start doing it, to pull our people away from what is right, to be more leaning on the government. So let us get together and understand the time and what must be done because it's our time. We're on the clock now. We're learning from what was done. Let's make it happen. Anything else, Doc, before I give the closing salute?
Not at all, my brother. Not at all. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and let's keep going forward.
Definitely. So as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
So you better get the message and get it straight.
You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in Georgia.